Hello and welcome to the show. Now you may be wondering why I am doing a silly car build on the KTM X-Bow, because after all it is intended to be a track car. The thing is, when you put tremendous amounts of power into these track cars, they tend to become really very difficult to drive. From standard they can often be a little bit twitchy, but with 800 plus horsepower that becomes very twitchy and difficult to go fast. Let's not forget, the KTM R500, that is almost into P class, was only a second lap faster than a Ford Transit that was just about into S. So I'm curious to see how this KTM will fare. Certainly in Forza 5, the open-wheel track cars were considerably twitchier than they are in 6, but it is still a very big problem at times to keep these cars under control, especially in wet conditions. Now, as far as engines go, we've got the option for the 1.6 turbo rally. Good enough engine, but not going to get me as much power as the 3.7 litre V6. We do have the option for the 3 litre V8 racing. However, we're going to go for the V6. You can get more power out of the V6. It is slightly heavier, a couple £100 heavier actually, than the V8 racing, but we're going to go for the V6 in this one. Oopsie, we don't want that one. We do want an aspiration, well, I guess. We're going to want to get some twin turbos onto this, up to 434 horsepower already. And I'm already scared. We shall get some Forza Aero, anything that might help us with some control. I will take the rear wing placement on this car. Actually relatively sensible, considering there's very little in the way of, well, space to put a rear wing. It's kind of actually sort of suits the car, certainly a little bit more than the Caterhams and so on. So yeah, it's not too sillier a wing. We will get some nice race tyres. I don't know how large are tyres we're going to get on here. Two 2.5s on the front is not particularly big. Okay, and we are going to have 2 7.5s on the rear. Now, of course, yes, this is a good chassis. It is a very light car, but 2 7.5s with some 800 plus horsepower going through them might give us problems. I think the Caterham might be slightly less twitchy than the the KTM might be slightly less twitchy than the Caterham. That's going to be really difficult, and I apologise if I've messed that up and not realised before, or if I mess it up again, which is quite likely. I'll just call it the X-Bow from now on, okay? I think this might be slightly less twitchy than some of the other ones, but it is still likely to be a bit of a pain. We are up into at the top of S-Class with a mere 434 horsepower at the top of S-Class. Wondering how high the PI might go on this vehicle as we start sticking in some more power. Now, I believe this engine itself will get into the relatively high 800s. I don't think it quite hits 900 horsepower here, but there is certainly going to be plenty of power. And again, you've got to look at the power to weight ratio in this. We're down to 1,807 pounds. Admittedly, the intercooler and the oil and cooling is likely to up that again. We should still be coming out at under 2,000 pounds. That is a big power to weight ratio in a car that might be a bit snappy, might be a little bit uncooperative. And you put all of that together, and that's why cars like these, while it sounds like a sensible prospect, you know, a track car going around a track, might not be. We are in fact up into P class. So PI wise, this is potentially going to be one of the highest cars that we have had here. We are going to put on all of these, even though it loses it a couple of PI, up to 865 horsepower in the X-Bow. 875, 1,923 pounds in this. So that power to weight ratio is mighty in this car. The PI is very high, but just how difficult is it going to be to drive? That is the question. Of course, to test out the X-Bow, we have come to Virginia International Raceway, where it will have 5 laps around this Patriot alternate layout. And if the PI is to be believed, the X-Bow could challenge the leaders. The Toyota NASCAR has a 107.0, the Bugatti Veyron a 107.2, and the Diablo a 107.6. Now, this could potentially... I mean, the Diablo wasn't even into P-Class, so if this is controllable, potentially could challenge them, but that is a big if. The Caterham is down with a 111, so we are hoping that this crossbow won't be horribly and twitchy. The brakes are indeed, as I say, the brakes should be good, and indeed they are. How do we do through these corners? Are we going to be a horrible, horrible twitch machine, or will we have grip? Will we be able to use the power? There's actually quite a lot of understeer going on through that first section, or it doesn't seem like too much of a horrible twitch machine. That is good news, although it does feel like it feels like a horrible understeer machine at the moment. I would rather have that in terms of drivability. Much easier to drive it if we've just got to worry about understeer and not worry about it getting twitchy and trying to kill me. But we are still perhaps going to be a little bit limited on lap speed if it is very, very bad in terms of understeer. This is actually really remarkably composed. After the fight I had with a Caterham, I was really expecting this to be a handful and a half, and it's simply not. I wasn't expecting that one. Really wasn't expecting that one at all. Can we get to full throttle? Not quite in fourth gear out of that final corner, but from a standing start it is nearly gone quicker than the Caterham. That is good going. It's up towards 180 miles an hour. In fact, I was still early on the brakes. Okay, this is fast. This is seriously fast. Indeed, we've just got to watch for the understeer. Got to be a little bit patient. Don't get too aggressive. It's tempting when you've got to wait for quite a while to get the front end turned in. It's tempting to try and then get too aggressive on the throttle, and that is when we are going to spin. So we've just got to keep patient through here. Ooh, okay. Ooh, we kept it out of the tyre bundle, thank God. That was the first twitch I had with the car. I think I might have been riding across the curbs, unsettled it, and yeah, we ended up barreling towards that tyre bundle. There could have only been a couple of millimetres to spare in, in that one. We got away with it. That is the important part. Ooh, that puddle is also dangerous. Now, of course, you want to go through the thinnest part of the puddle to minimise the effects of it. However, with a car this light and so on, when you aim for that part, the left-hand side of the car goes through a slightly deeper, slightly larger part of the puddle, and it pulls the car to the left, which is not good. We're into the 108s already, and that was... Oh, I've gone... My brain is just working under the assumption of a normal car's braking into this first corner, and you can go so much later with the KTM. We can definitely do that much better next time around. No, patience. Patience, don't be aggressive with the throttle. That's where you get in trouble. And don't be aggressive with the curbs either. It's not worth it. It's just going to get me into trouble. Yeah, I think it might be actually a twitch before I got to the curbs, come to think of it. Just looking at where the signs are, we'd have to have a twitch before we got to that particular section. Oh, this is quick. This is quick. If we get the first sector right, the NASCAR might be in trouble. I've loved having a NASCAR at the top of the table for this. I have. But it might be in a little bit of bother if I can get everything right with the crossbow, because this really is not bad. This is really not that bad considering all of the power that is going through this car. But fourth gear is what we want out of that final corner. So 107.9, but I know there is time to be found into this first corner. There we go. On the brakes. Oh, it's a little too much. A little too much. Ah, thought we could do that. Okay, we can't quite go on the brakes at the the start of the second line of cones. We're going to have to be a little bit earlier. Well, pressure is on. We've got one lap. One lap to go quicker than the NASCAR. It is going to be a tall ask. I actually thought that last lap was going to be a little bit quicker than that 107.9. So I know there is time to be found in the first sector. Is there time to be found through... Well, through that bit? Maybe not. That, I think, is where... If we're going to get into trouble with this car, that's where it's going to happen, up that section. We've already had one bit of a nervous twitch through there, so that may not be a good place to try and find too much time. How are we doing with... Yeah, we can carry a lot of speed through there, which is always nice. Ooh, okay, puddle. If we've got that out of our system now, right, that's... We've got that out of our system so that we can really attack this final lap, get it into fourth gear, and we can go to full throttle. Here we go. This is the lap that counts. Even being a very small, light car, the bumps are no problem whatsoever for the X-Bow. Get it stopped for turn 1. That was spot on. That is what we wanted, although the car just got dragged. I think the front wheel was ever so slightly on the puddle in the inside and just pulls the car sideways. This one here has certainly been pulled around a fair bit by the grass, by the puddles. That we've done a little bit more off-track excursions than I would really like on this lap so far. Yeah, got to be really careful. I'm wanting to get that nice line up that section, but it does run a fair risk. Can we get any more time in this final sector? I don't know if we can. Get it stopped and turned nicely here. Try and get on that power puddle. You did get out of your system last time around. Thank you for that. Tip it in to the second to last corner. One more turn to go. We'll try and get the power down nicely out of here. A little bit on the curb, but it's not too bad. We're up into 4th gear. Oh, I tried to go for it. We spun the wheels. Oh, it's gone quick. 107.299. Oh, and I found some time in that final sector. It was not quite enough. It certainly gave him a fright, though, at the top of the table. X-Bow is really not bad. It is really not bad whatsoever. Have got to be a bit careful with those curbs. It's the puddles that sit behind the curbs that affect this car the most. I mean, I've run plenty of vehicles around here, and I don't think any of them have been pulled offline as much as this one does. They're the big thing to watch out for. And we did get pulled a little bit on that final run, but it wasn't too bad, and we got a mega final sector that time out, which means we have a new 3rd place car here. The KTM X-Bow will go into 3rd. It is a fraction down on the Veyron. It's 0.2 of a second off that NASCAR. It does beat the Lamborghini Diablo for what I was expecting to be quite a twitchy, quite a difficult potential mess of a car. This is really not that bad. Some 4 seconds faster, 4.5 seconds faster than the KTM R500. Yeah, this is perfectly manageable, really, for this sort of course. Really quite nice. Probably don't think it's stupid with the puddles and the curbs. A little bit of understeer going on from this vehicle, but that's much easier to deal with. I'd rather it do that than be snappy oversteery. Yeah, much easier to deal with. So, an impressive lap time from the X-Bow. It is now time to find out just how quick it will go in a straight line. After a 3rd place for the lap time, we are not going to be seeing the KTM quite that far up the leader in terms of straight line speed. After all, we simply do not have the power, and the car is more designed for cornering grip. So if we can get into, well, it's 217 miles an hour is the Caterham speed, so if we can potentially go faster than the R500, that would be nice, but I think that might be quite tough to do that. In fact, yeah, looking at the little graph there, it's not saying more than 214. In fact, we're barely going to get 200 miles an hour out of this. 205 perhaps is all we're going to be able to achieve. That's perhaps a little bit. Oh yeah, wow, really, it's in fact the standard gearing is pretty much spot on here. 204.8. We will see if we can get 204 miles an hour out of our X-Bow. Okay, back into the cockpit view. It does pretty well in terms of traction for getting going. You can be a relatively big moron with the throttle and the car will have grip. There's the tiniest bit of oversteer. Yeah, the fact that this is actually quite understeery, I think helps it in the long run. I'm very much used to dealing with cars being that bit more understeery because, well, I don't want oversteer, so I'll tend to tune my cars so that they are very planted, and the offset for that is understeer. And this, it seems to be a bit more like that from standard. We do get a little bit of oversteer, but it's nothing too bad. It's not horribly twitchy. The offset of that is, yeah, the front end doesn't quite get turned into some of these corners as well. We're 185 miles an hour as we come on to this straight, and it looks like we've hit the wall. Basically, the aero limits of this car, it just can't do anything more than this. 204 miles an hour. I would like the 205, but even the benchmark didn't think it could do 205, so come on. If we could just have a slight downhill section, just a little don't think we're going to get it somehow. Here, go on, 205. Yes, 205! We beat the benchmark, although I guess it might be rounding it up. To be fair, it might be rounding it up. Either way, it said 205. Woo! And then we are, no problems across the bumps, no problem around the corner, and we only lost about 1 mile an hour in all of that. Yep, it is really, really quite good. Not what I was expecting. I was expecting a really tough car to drive, and it simply isn't. Not amazingly fast in a straight line. That bit I am not particularly surprised by. I thought we might get a little bit closer to the Caterham. I thought we might go a little closer to that in terms of straight line speed, but that was not to be, but a very, very controlled run, most definitely, from this KTM. The speed will put the car into 49th place. It is down towards the bottom of the table. It will go faster than the Fiat 595 and the BMW Isetta, the Willys Jeep. I mean, it does, after all, crack 200 miles an hour. However, it loses out to the Rolls-Royce Dawn, the Mercury Coupe, the Ford Transit, the Alfa Romeo P3. Yeah, doesn't have very much in the way of straight line speed. I think far too much drag on this car. The drag good for generating downforce, so good for the circuit, but yeah, down here, not so helpful. Impressive, very impressive around the track. Gave a real fright to the to the leaders. It was very, very close, and surprisingly not horrendous and twitchy. However, that is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.